I know that many of you here in America and around the world sit down around this time, the dinner hour, to get caught up on what's going on all over the world. We take that very seriously here on the News with Rick Sanchez, which is why, unlike our competitors, we actually do show you what's going on all over the world, especially when it comes to protests, what citizens are saying, not just the ones we like or agree with, but all of them. Last night, for example, protesters took to the streets again in Barcelona. It is a fiery clash with police they had, which began when their pro-independence leaders got a harsh sentence from the Spanish Supreme Court. Catalonia, which is comprised of 4 of the wealthiest provinces in all of Spain, they want to secede. Today, protesters cornered police officers, pelted them with food, interestingly enough, and other items until more officers arrived to disperse the demonstrators. It is a complicated story that the Spanish government is really having a tough time grappling with, but certainly not as difficult a time as the government of Hong Kong. It, as you saw in our exclusive report from there last night, is literally under assault, not just from protesters, but from the West, it seems. In fact, Hong Kong lawmakers are so convinced of this that today they slammed the U.S. House of Representatives for passing the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act, calling it, well, they say it's blatant interference. With more tonight from Hong Kong, here is News with Rick Sanchez correspondent Michele Greenstein.
There are a number of front lines to the U.S.-led war on China. There's the tariff war. There's the military encirclement. There's the isolation of its technology giants. And then there's the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act. The legislation, praised by both Republicans and Democrats, includes giving the U.S. authority to punish individuals deemed to be undermining autonomy, human rights, or democracy in Hong Kong. And in effect, it allows the U.S. to punish the Hong Kong government for cracking down on protester violence. These individuals may have their assets seized or be denied entry into the U.S. Sunny Jung is a spokesperson for the Hong Kong Higher Education International Affairs Delegation. Last month, he was in Washington lobbying the House to pass this legislation.
We support the Human Rights and Democracy Act because we believe with this act, it authorizes the United States government try to sanction those officials in Hong Kong and in China who violate our human rights condition and undermine our Hong Kong's autonomy.
The bill also gives the State Department the authority to certify whether or not Hong Kong is sufficiently autonomous from China at any point in time. If the region is not found to be autonomous by the State Department standards, then any commercial agreements, export control agreements, or any U.S. law that gives Hong Kong preferential treatment as compared to the mainland gets called into question. This means that Hong Kong could lose its so-called special trading privileges. And since Hong Kong is often used as a method for China to obtain foreign investment, the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act offers the U.S. another method of containing China's economic rise. But perhaps more significantly, the loss of Hong Kong's special trading status would lead to an outflow of wealth from the region. Geopolitical analyst Andrew Karibko says that this in turn would contribute to further radicalizing the most nationalist-inclined members of the population. And that American strategists believe that the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act is all that's needed to catalyze a self-sustaining cycle of unrest. Jung, who's traveling back to D.C. to lobby the Senate this week, also used to be a committee member of the Hong Kong Federation of Students, an organization that played an instrumental role in Hong Kong's 2014 anti-government movement. And Nathan Law, the former Secretary General of this organization, works closely with the National Endowment for Democracy, an organization created to do the work of the CIA. And many say that what the CIA does is destabilize foreign countries that threaten the economic interests of the U.S. ruling class. The NED has been implicated in funding organizations that organize many of the large anti-government rallies this summer. The NED has also worked closely with political parties in Hong Kong on the political front of this anti-government movement. If the unrest and disorder escalates to a point where the response from Hong Kong's government or Beijing must be condemned by the international community, it could help the U.S. pressure its allies to cut their growing trade ties with China. And although this may benefit the U.S., whose global economic dominance sees itself threatened by China's rise, it does not benefit the 7 million people of Hong Kong, who may see themselves living in an ever-increasing state of violence until the inevitable intervention by the People's Republic. In Hong Kong, for the News with Rick Sanchez, Michele Greenstein, RT.